Peter Dutton, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, Sharri. Thank you.
How concerning is it that a factional backroom deal among the far left fringes of the Labor Party seems to be shaping Australia's foreign policy?
Well, Sharri, I think it's the worst possible message that we could send to one of our closest friends and allies in Israel. I think the Jewish community here in Australia would be quite shocked to see that the Prime Minister has sold them out for a backroom deal with factional warlords who are trying to avert a bloodbath at the ALP conference. I think it speaks a lot about the Prime Minister's character that he's willing to walk away from a very stable relationship and one that we really have a great deal of respect for. So I think he's got a lot of questions to answer.
Senior Jewish community leadership were blindsided by this move. I understand the Israeli ambassador also wasn't given any serious advanced warning. Do you think this does jeopardise our relationship with our major security partner in the Middle East?
I think it puts a lot of pressure on the relationship, and it's not the first time that the government's blindsided the Israeli authorities or the Israeli ambassador here in Australia. And I think there are many people in the Jewish community who rightly are saying, well, what's next? I mean, the hardcore left element of the Labor Party don't stop here. And I think people should be reminded that the Prime Minister was the leader of the left for many, many years. And I think this has given a window, frankly, into who the real Anthony Albanese is. I think he's let his guard down, and I think people have got a bit of an idea, frankly, of what lies beneath. And I think it's very disturbing because it sends the wrong message to our allies. It sends the wrong message, certainly, to the Jewish community here.
I mean, you say that this gives a window or an insight into the true Anthony Albanese. Well, last night on the program, I played some comments that Albanese had made from parliamentary speeches and in other places throughout his career, going back 22 years. And it shows that he's never been a true friend of Israel. Do you think we've had a Prime Minister like this before? And how do you think this changes Australia's foreign policy approach?
Well, certainly not in my time in Parliament. Over the course of the last 2.5 decades have I seen a Prime Minister that's so scattery on the friendship and relationship with Israel. I think the Jewish community is rightly scratching their heads at the moment, to put it politely, trying to understand what the Prime Minister has done, how it didn't take much at all for him to revert back to, frankly, where he's been for a long period of time.
Do you think this is also a disproportionate focus on Israel when there are so many genuine human rights atrocities around the world? I mean, you only have to look at what the Taliban's doing in Afghanistan, not to mention the Uyghurs, how they're being treated in concentration camps in China. Does it seem like the Labor Party has an unhealthy obsession with Israel? Because this is what keeps being raised at their national conference, and we haven't seen any other motions come out of the Labor Party caucus in federal parliament on many of these other really concerning issues.
Yeah, well, I agree with you absolutely. I think it is an unhealthy obsession that they've got with Israel. I think for many people it spans many decades, and including the Prime Minister. I don't think that you go into Parliament and you don't have clear your thoughts in relation to major international matters, and his instinct hasn't been to support Israel over a long period of time. And the left's instinct is to do all they can to damage the state of Israel and the relationship between our two countries.
Look, on The Voice, the polls are currently indicating that it's on track to fail. Do you think Anthony Albanese should resign if The Voice fails?
I think the Prime Minister, frankly, is talking out of both sides of his mouth here. I mean, on one day he says that he believes in the Uluru Statement in full. He believes in treaty as well as The Voice, as well as truth-telling. And then on the next day he's saying, well, this is not a government initiative, this is what they've been asked to do by Indigenous Australians. And I think, frankly, a lot of Indigenous leaders will be scratching their heads about a Prime Minister that's only half-hearted, and the public who is craving information just wants the details so they can make an informed judgment. And he's refusing to provide that detail. And that is a deliberate strategy, which is quite remarkable, again, without precedent, that a Prime Minister would ask the Australian public to make the biggest change in our country's history to the referendum, to the Constitution, but not give them the information during the course of the referendum debate. I think it's quite astounding, and Should he resign? Well, that's a question for he and the Labor Party, but I'm pretty sure of this, that people like Tanya Plibersek and Bill Shorten and others will be saying, how, Anthony Albanese, did you turn a 70-30 vote into a 60-40 vote?